We went to Northtown visitin', my good old wife and me, and thought that we would bathe ourselves in Christmas joy and glee. For Sarah Ann, a buxom dame and daughter too of mine, resides there with her other half, and children 8 or 9. And so we gathered gifts enough to make them all content, and took the train and landed there the very day we went. And the children warmly greeted us and crowded round my chair, with 4 perching on my knees and young and still to spare, and asked about my spectacles, and how I growed my wig, and if my pa had bought my teeth before I got so big, and how my whiskers came to bleach, and other questions prone to make a mortal realize that his younger days have flown. And if I ever looked it up, how far I was around, and when I run, if it would shake the whole adjacent ground, and if your correct weight box wouldn't think that I was a lot, and if I wouldn't have to put 2 pennies in the slot, with other questions well designed to give a hint to me that I wasn't so very slender so far as they could see. And when I told them fairy tales, they wouldn't believe a word, and said the Sinbad sailor things could never have occurred. And all the little pleasant lies that used to cheer my youth, they set upon without delay as destitute of truth. And when of Christmas mysteries in solemn tones I spake, they laughed and said that Santa Claus was all a bloomin' fake. So Christmas Eve I slyly told my daughter Sarah Ann, I'll show the little tots a sight to laugh at if they can. You rake the fireplace clear of fire, not telling 'em the cause, and I'll come down the chimney way dressed up as Santa Claus. It isn't so very fur to climb, the weather's pretty mild, and I would do 3 times as much to interest a child. And I went and clad in hairy garb, with whiskers long and white, and other things to paralyze the inexperienced sight. And I had some sleigh bells bright and new a-hanging on my arms, and pockets full of Christmas things to add unto my charms. And with the strongest ladder rope that I could find in town, I entered in the chimney top and clambered slowly down. Oh, my goodness sake, who heard of such untimely luck? The chimney narrowed all at once, and suddenly I stuck, and hung there like a roastin' hen a-waitin' to be brown, for in spite of all my effortin', I couldn't get up or down. And then the children heard the noise and run distressin' fleet, and looked and yelled, "It's Grandpa Steb! We know him by his feet!" And their mother had to tell what I had tried to do, whereat their little fancies sprung to the subject to pursue. They asked me if I traveled far, and if the chimney injured coats, and where my span of reindeer was, and if they'd like some oats, and told me, with childish greed, for Christmas gathered pelf, if I would throw the presents down, I needn't come myself. And there I hung for quite a while with fury in my heart, until they brought a mason in and took the bricks apart. And though they made the children stop and sent 'em off to bed, I know what they was thinking of and what they probably said. And when morning light appeared and breakfast time occurred, they sat around the table there, forbid to say a word. I was suffering so to laugh at me, afraid that I'd be gruff, and longing for the presents too. I knowed it well enough. And then a tear come in my eye, and like a fond old dunce, I went and dug the presents out and gave 'em all at once. And then I says, if Santa Claus is what you call a fake, these pretty things he brought for you is real and no mistake. And then they up and danced around and kissed me one by one and hugged me harder than that blamed old chimney had done. and with 1,000 looks of love encumbered me with thanks, and made me like 'em more and more, in spite of all their pranks. And one, the prettiest of the whole, who always took my part, she smiles and says, "It's Grandpa Steb. We know him by his heart."